Hi, my name is Monte Tilgner with the Iowa High School Athletic Association. This will be one of a series of preseason videos for our football officials to prepare for the upcoming 2025 season. This one is going to focus on new rules from the past several years, and we've got 8 different plays we're going to take a look at. So on this first one here, you can see what we have is regarding a new rule from 2018. This is a little further back, but it's a very important rule. It is the rule about illegal blindside blocks. And Rule 943N states that it is a foul to execute a blindside block outside the free blocking zone with forcible contact unless initiated with open hands. We got to be really, very careful with that open hands comment because that in order for it not to be a foul, they need to not only have the hands out in front of the body and initiate with the open hands, the contact needs to be with the hands and the arms extending. So just because the hands are in front doesn't mean it's not going to be a foul. They can have their hands out in front of them. Their hands are right in front of them, but they still crunch with their shoulder pads or their chest or their head that opponent, and that would still be a foul. So it has to literally be open hands in front of the body, contacting and pushing the opponent down. And you can do that forcibly if you do it that manner. But just because the hands are out in front, if you still absorb that and create the contact with your shoulders or chest, then it's going to be a foul. So we take a look at this play. And first of all, we need to be thinking right now that we've got a high potential for a blindside block. And who should be looking at this? Initially, the back judge is going to be on this side of the field, but as soon as he sees this ball is handed off, the back judge should shift over to this side. The headline judge at the top of the screen should definitely be seeing this block. What we don't want is for our line of scrimmage officials to be watching a runner with the ball who's running in space. If he's running in space, he's free of foul. He can't foul somebody, nor can anyone foul him. So when that's the case, we need to be looking at blocks. And if we continue here, you can see this runner is in space. So our headline judge here should just be holding that line of scrimmage. Okay, it's first or second down play. Just be holding that line of scrimmage. Wait for this runner to get out in front of you 3-4 yards before you continue downfield. As you're doing so, there's no reason to be watching him when we have all this space between him and anybody who could foul him. So we would want to be watching the runner. I'm sorry, not the runner. We would want to be watching the blocker. And the block we'd want to be on would be this block right here. And you can see this is going to be an illegal blindside block. So he comes in forcibly, and again, his hands might be out in front of his body, but the contact is with the contact is with the shoulders and with the pads. So his hands are out in front. And after he contacts him, he might use those hands to push, but that contact, the forcible contact, was not with open hands extended. It was with the chest. And you can see the flag comes from our referee, which is a really good pickup by our referee. But we have an injured player here, and this is exactly why this rule is put into place. It's a safety foul. We really should have had 3 flags on this, at least 2 from our back judge and our headline judge. Referee would be a bonus. But again, this block, so talking about enforcement, the block was at or behind the line of scrimmage. Therefore, with the new rule from 2 years ago, the basic spot has changed, and that basic spot is going to be from the previous spot. We would not have to move our flag then to the spot of the foul because we're going to enforce it from the previous spot. However, down here, my comment is, what if this foul was 3 yards downfield and then the runner gained 10 yards on the play? In that case, it's a running play. The basic spot's the end of the run. The spot or the foul is by the team in possession behind the basic spot. Therefore, per the 3-1 principle, we would enforce it from the spot of the foul. That means if our flag is not on the right yard line and the right ball position of where that foul occurred, we would need to move it. Next rule is from 2022, and it's one regarding timing. And this one involves the game clock. The next play is going to involve the play clock. So you can see we're in the second quarter and we're under 2 minutes. So if we just go forward here, we take a look. What we have is the new rule, which is 477. When a foul is committed with less than 2 minutes in the half, in either half, the offended team would have the option to start the clock on the snap if they want. So in this play, we don't have a foul, but let's say we have a foul by the defense. Let's say we have a personal foul face mask at the end of this run. We would enforce that from the basic spot, and then they could team A could elect to have the clock start on the snap and not on the ready for play, so they will be able to get another play off. So in this case, what's our basic spot? Well, again, with the new rule from 2023, Rule 10.4, with the change in the basic spot, the end of this run is behind the previous spot, and therefore we enforce that from the previous spot. So we would go back to the previous spot. We would enforce this half the distance. It looks like from the 1 to the half-yard line. And you can see that when the clock would stop probably with around 19 seconds left, and the team could elect to have this start on the snap, and then, they might be able to get 2 or 3, plays off if they would decide to pass the ball. But they definitely would not have to be rushing to get at least one play off, because with this rule, since there was a foul by the defense, we would enforce that from the basic spot. But because we're under 2 minutes, the offense can elect to have the clock start on the snap instead of the ready for play. The second rule in 2022 regarding the clock status was regarding the play clock. And again, in this case, this involves, it's at any point of the game. All right. So here's the rule 361A, exception number 1. After a defensive penalty, defensive injury, or a defensive helmet off, which is a type of equipment violation on the defense, the play clock will be set to 40 seconds. So normally, before this rule came into play, after a penalty, after an injury, after a helmet off or whatever, we had an administrative stoppage, it always went to 25. But in this case now with the new rule, if it's something against the defense, it's going to be set to 40. So the offense, if they want, can milk that clock a little more. So that's the new rule. So in this case, again, if we had a foul by the defense, we would enforce it. The clock would go to 40, whether that be on the snap or the ready for play. If we have an injury, clock's going to go to 40. If we have a helmet off, he's going to have to leave the game. Clock's going to go to 40. Going back to that play, if they would take a timeout, if it's a helmet off and they would take a timeout, he could come back in the game. Now, after a timeout, the clock's going to go to 25. But if they don't take a timeout to keep him in the game for the helmet off, it would go to 40. Remember, for an injury, they cannot use a timeout to buy a player back into the game. There has to be one play ran before he can get back into the game. Next is 2023, new rule 232.16D and 943G, and that is the personal foul, illegal personal contact against an opponent, including a defensive player, which is deemed unnecessary and excessive and which incites roughness. So where we see this most often with this new rule is against a receiver. So you can see we're going to have a receiver going up for the pass, and this receiver is forced to be contacted and knocked to the ground. Okay, so with this new rule, in order for it not to be a foul, there's three things. They can make a hard hit, but if so, they have one of these three things have to be in play in order for it not to be a foul. Making a play on the ball. So if they're both going for the ball and there's a severe collision, they're both going for the ball, it's not a foul. Again, initiated with open hands, but again, that means that open hands are in front of the body, and using that to forcibly push that runner or that player who's defenseless, or a wrap-up tackle. So they can hit them as hard as they want as long as as they're doing it, they wrap them up and they continue to go down to the ground or whatever with that player. So in this case, defender made forcible contact, which was not with the hands. He did not wrap up, so this is a foul. And we had a completed catch at the 24-yard line, so we're going to enforce this 15-yard penalty from the basic spot, which is going to be the end of that run and after the catch. So we're going to go from the 24 to the 39. We're going to be position 5, and we're going to snap the ball right there. Again, with the new rule we just talked about, this is a foul by the defense. So whether we wind the clock or if they were out of bounds and we did not wind the clock, the clock would go to 40 seconds. Now here's an example of, again, a very hard hit against a receiver who is defenseless. It's not a foul because he continues and he wraps up. So let's watch this one. They're coming across, and you know what we need to. The back judge should be the primary one to see this. Probably this wing down here at the bottom as well. But we need to see this player who's coming to attack that defenseless receiver. He's the one that could deliver that illegal block. Again, in this case, very forcible. But look, he grabs him and wraps him up and goes down to the ground with him. And that's why in this case, even though it was a very forcible hit, just as forcible as the last play, but this one he wraps up and thus it's not a foul. So coaches need to be teaching their players to wrap after those big hits. Officials, we need to be watching to see that they do wrap. If they don't, we need to put a flag down. Okay, 2023, talked about this one a little bit already. Rule changes involving the basic spot. So in this play, we're going to be taking a look at the right tackle. The right tackle is going to hold. You can see a good grab and restrict, take down, hold right there. So holding by Team A behind the line of scrimmage. And per the new rule, we are going to enforce that from the basic spot. But the change was that the basic spot is now the previous spot. So we're no longer going to have that, in essence, 14 or 16-yard holding penalty as we did in the past, because those fouls by Team A behind the line of scrimmage are going to be enforced from the line of scrimmage. So we're going to enforce that 10 yards in the previous spot. We're going to repeat the down. And just a little note at the end, since this player's progress was stopped in bounds, even though he ended up going out of bounds, we should be winding the clock at the end of this play and then kill it for the penalty. But we're going to have a hot clock and we're going to wind it on the ready for play for the next play. Okay, let's just go back and talk about a couple of scenarios here. So let's say that we have a foul by the defense. As we talked about before, if we had a foul by the defense, let's say the quarterback here would get tackled by the face mask or something like that. Again, this is not going to be a penalty if he would get tackled right here by face mask. Before this new rule came into play, we would enforce it from the end of this run, 15 yards, this direction. But now with the new rule, we would go back and we would enforce that from the previous spot and to go our 15 yards. So a big difference. It just really levels things out, and a very important rule that we understand. The only real rule of importance this year that is going to come into play a lot for us. There's a couple administrative things you can look at, but this is one that is going to have an impact. forward fumble out of bounds. So rule 342D, when a forward fumble goes out of bounds between the goal lines, the ball will be returned to the spot of the fumble. So let's just take a look at this play. I couldn't find a play where we actually had a forward fumble out of bounds, so I'm just going to create one. All right. Let's say that right here, before this player's down at the 30-yard line, he loses the ball. And let's say that this ball follows this path and bouncing around, ends up bouncing and going out of bounds at the 25-yard line. So in that case, per the new rule, we're going to bring the ball back to the 30-yard line. And a note about the clock, you treat this, if we're bringing it back into the field of play at the 30-yard line, we're treating it like the ball became dead in the field of play, which means we're going to have a clock that we're going to wind. So after we bring this ball back to the 30, we don't have a penalty or anything, but we are going to have the play clock in this case. This is not a penalty again. So the play clock is going to go to 40 at the end of this play. We're going to bring it back into the 30-yard line. And once we get that ball down, we're going to wind that clock. And that would be, again, because the ball was fumbled from inbounds. Now, you notice that in that rule, it said the forward fumble goes out of bounds between the goal lines. So what happens if it gets fumbled at the 1-2 yard line and goes out the side of the end zone, goes in the end zone, out the side, or it goes in the end zone and out the back of the end zone? This does not change. This is the same because it's not between the goal lines. We're not going to bring the ball back and give them an advantage. They messed up when they fumbled the ball and it went in the end zone and out the back or out the side. Therefore, this is still going to be a touchback just like it's always been. And this is going to be Team B's ball at the 20-yard line. And remember, in this situation, they would have the choice of what they want for the location of the ball for that next snap. All right, that is the end of our rules review on some of the new rules in the past few years. Make sure that that's just be something that we pregame for our opening game, and make sure that we have these rules down and we enforce them properly, including the clock status of those rules. Look forward to having some more videos out, and we'll talk to you again soon.